There are a number of public markets in the colonies, meaning you can get supplies easily. Of course, paying for goods is another matter as currency was incredibly complex. People paid in English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese coin, wampum, New Jersey and New York bills, magic beans, laundromat coins. The list goes on. We've simplified everything down to you for you in the Animus. You're welcome. While some markets sold a variety of goods, like Faneuil Hall in Boston, others were more specialized. New York's Cointies slip was mainly a fish market, though, like most markets, it sold a little of everything. While if you were in the market for African slaves, Peck Slip was the place to go. Yes, slavery was legal at the time, though it was less common in Boston than New York, which had the largest slave population in the north. Don't be surprised to see European servants for sale either. Some were sold for a fixed number of years to pay back their passage to the New World. A much better deal than the slaves were offered. Well, I guess that would be a fair deal. Benjamin Franklin was a renowned inventor, diplomat, and one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Translation, he was a rock star of the age. Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston in 1706, the 10th son of a soap maker. 10 sons! I guess his parents couldn't afford a television. Also, there was no television. He began working for his brother in 1718 as an apprentice printer. However, their relationship was rocky, particularly after the elder Franklin found out that young Benjamin Franklin had been writing for the paper under a pseudonym, Silence Dogood, and writing an extremely popular column at that. Human nature being what it is, the fact that the column was popular was probably the bigger problem. Benjamin ran away in 1723 and headed for Philadelphia, where he continued his career in printing and writing, and eventually buying the Pennsylvania Gazette. The business, not just a copy. That would have been one of his lesser achievements. He stayed in Philadelphia for most of his life, that is, when he wasn't making extended trips to Europe. Franklin had a talent for persuasion, and that made him an ideal diplomat. In 1757, he went to London to represent Pennsylvania in an ongoing legal battle with the Penn family. It was the first of several extended political trips to Britain, and he would act as a state representative for Massachusetts, Georgia, and New Jersey as well. In fact, Franklin was in Europe for most of the Revolution, though he was in the colonies to help with the writing of the Declaration of Independence. Franklin was a vocal opponent of British impositions on colonies like the Stamp Act, and although he first fought the rights of colonists as British citizens, he eventually became convinced, like many of the Founding Fathers, that independence was the only real solution. Unfortunately, Franklin's change of heart made him clash with his son, William, who served as the royal governor of New Jersey. William remained an active loyalist. The father and son never spoke again. When he wasn't founding a new nation and destroying his family in the process, Franklin was a scientist, inventing things like bifocals and more efficient wood stoves when he wasn't mapping the Gulf Stream, and discovering how electricity worked. What have you done today? Made yourself a microwave meal and sat about in your underwear? Oh, well done, you. Not me. He was also quite the lady killer. Jesus, this guy carrying on several friendships with women while he was in Europe. The records don't say what exactly they saw in him, certainly not his looks. Maybe women like a man who's intelligent. If that's true, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in Portugal surrounded by them, and you'd be looking at a blank screen.
Have you been?
Faneuil, okay. Don't let the French spelling confuse you. The name of this building is pronounced Faneuil or Faneuil. Getting it wrong is a good way to indicate you're not from around here, but it's also a great way to proving you're not French, which in my experience is a real boon. Also, if you want to pass as a local, you should take a good look at the weather vane. It's a Boston landmark. Legend has it that in the War of 1812, suspected spies were asked what was on top of the Faneuil Hall. Only a true local would be able to say it was a grasshopper. Is it a grasshopper? I guess you can't tell from here. The building was named after Peter Faneuil, the local merchant who paid to build it. It was meant as a place for local farmers to sell their goods so their carts would stop crowding the streets, and also so you don't have to walk near farmers. However, it's the meeting hall on the second floor which gives the building its nickname, the Cradle of Library. The Cradle of Liberty. Cradle of Library wouldn't be as exciting. That's rather ostentatious, and dare I say American, as a nickname, but it's not inaccurate. People met here to protest the Stamp Act. The first anti-tea tax meeting were also held here. Anti-British meetings occasionally drew crowds so large the building couldn't even hold them, at which point they all went to the Old South Meeting Hall. During the siege of Boston, the meeting hall here was made over into a theater. Since plays of any kind were banned in Boston under ordinary circumstances, something I think should still be a law. Actually, this is yet another example of the British loyalists sticking it to the rebels. Oh, if Boston didn't have Broadways. This tavern is sometimes called the headquarters of the revolution, though I imagine when it is, they pronounce it headquarters of the revolution, because overthrowing the government in a pub is thirsty work. It was a popular place for people like Paul Revere and Samuel Adams to sit with their friends and plot. Up until 1754, the tavern was owned by William Douglas. When he died, his property was left to his daughter Catherine Kerr and his nephew Cornelius Douglas. They divided their inheritance equally, and it seems got along famously. The Freemasons bought the tavern in 1766 and renamed it the Freemasons' Arms, which didn't actually stick because the sign above the door was still a green dragon. Freemasons, the secret society everyone knows about. Let's get a pub where we can meet in complete secret and no one will ever know. Brilliant, what shall we call it? How about the Freemason Arms? Oh, that's funny. Legend has it that Paul Revere's ride was planned here but that's unlikely. In 1774, Revere had been warned that the British were listening in on his meetings and had therefore stopped making super secret plans in public where anyone could hear them. Someone tell the Masons, you know where to find them. William Johnson. William Johnson was a land speculator and Britain's principal treaty negotiator with the indigenous peoples in the northern part of the colonies, particularly the Iroquois. Johnson was born in Ireland but moved to the colonies in 1738 to look after his uncle's property on the Mohawk River. However, it wasn't long before Johnson branched out into business for himself, acquiring property on the opposite side of the river and setting up a sawmill and trading post, which he named Mount Johnson. Which to me always sounds like mating instructions from a caveman. Mount Johnson. Ha, I get it. Anyway, in 1743 he moved to an even larger parcel of land which he named Fort Johnson. He may have been an excellent businessman, but it's possible he lacked an imagination. Johnson befriended the indigenous peoples of the area, particularly the Kanien'kehá:ka, whose language he learned. His respect for their customs helped him rise to prominence as a liaison between the Iroquois people and the British government. Johnson was named Superintendent of Indian Affairs in 1756. As a contact who knows the land and its people, he's probably the best you'll find. Thomas Hickey. Oh, okay. Thomas Hickey was an Irish-born member of the British Army. He arrived in Boston in 1752, but it wasn't long before he was assigned to William Johnson's personal guard, apparently at Johnson's request, possibly because their families were connected in Ireland, or maybe he found the name Hickey funny. The record isn't clear. Hickey? It feels weird calling him Hickey, for sure. Hickey served under Johnson during the French and Indian War, but then left the army after being written up several times for disorderly conduct. In 1760, Hickey disappears from the historical records for several years. I do, however, have several mentions in William Johnson's household's accounts of payments to the T.H. It's possible Hickey was working for him as a spy. If so, he should really have developed some tougher codes to crack.